registered psychotherapist qualifying in Ontario, and today we will be discussing about perfectionism features that are seen within teachers and how these perfectionist teachers might be impacting them negatively, and how this might lead to burnout, and what you can do in order to support yourself if you are experiencing these challenges. So maybe after the classes you think that the lesson wasn't perfect and the students didn't quite get it, and the unit plan that could have been better designed, and maybe your feedback has arrived too late and you constantly blame yourself, criticize yourself that you might have done it better. And tonight we are speaking for the teachers whose standards are so high that good enough never feels good enough. And what is perfectionism? Perfectionism is actually not high standards, it's often confused with them. Perfectionism is the belief that only perfect performance is acceptable and that some mistakes or flaws in performance uh, reflect that you don't worth. And high standards are flexible and perfectionism is rigid. High standards allow for learning from imperfection. Perfectionism treats imperfection as evidence of inadequacy. And how perfectionism can be seen in teachers. Maybe you you are assuming that every class has to be perfect and every student must make progress and every interaction must be handled flawlessly and every administrative task must be completed optimally. And this standards is logically impossible because teaching involves a lot of uncontrollable variables, and yet perfectionist teachers hold themselves to it daily. And what are the costs? So teachers who are experiencing perfectionism features are burning out faster, and they might be more sensitive, and this might be impacting them negatively. And according to research conducted by Flat and Hewitt, perfectionism is significantly associated with burnout, anxiety, and depression, especially in professions that involve human outcomes such as teaching, medicine, social work, where many variables are uncontrollable. And perfectionist teachers burn out faster and often leave the profession earlier and than teachers with high but flexible standards. Therefore, it emphasizes the importance of noticing these perfectionist features and working with them so that teachers can serve their students, or high achievers can work for long term and do not burn out and can take care better of themselves. So one of acceptance commitment strategies that you can start to apply right away if you are experiencing these challenges is noticing the thoughts that you have related with your classes or students or your performance. And each time when you feel stuck or when you feel exhausted, you can notice which thoughts you have at that moment. And generally, thoughts are automatic. We cannot completely delete thoughts, and anyone has negative or automatic thoughts, but we have the choice to respond to them differently. For instance, if your lesson wasn't good enough, and if your mind is telling you that you should have done better or you are a failure, noticing the thought will help you to step back and to realize that this is just a thought, and just one lesson that didn't go well is not defining your identity, or it doesn't say anything about your performance in general. And this would help you to approach yourself with kindness, with compassion. Whereas if you are too close to the thought, if you are fused with the thought, it might be more difficult for you to approach yourself with compassion, and maybe you will respond to this thought by overthinking, rumination, and this will drain your energy, and this would impact your mood negatively. And even if the lesson was genuinely suboptimal, one lesson's quality doesn't determine a teacher's worth or effectiveness. So at the point when you notice that this is just a thought and that ruminating, overthinking, or criticizing yourself is not being helpful for you. This is the point of change where you can choose to respond differently. So instead of ruminating or overthinking, you can ask yourself, why is teaching important for me? And you can notice that these feelings or uh, challenging internal experiences are actually showing that you care about your students, that you care about your performance or your identity, and you can choose one value, one quality of yours that you want to see, and you can try to respond with this value to these thoughts. For instance, if you care, if the chosen value is care and kindness, you can ask yourself, what small step I can take right now to take care of myself, or uh, to be kind to myself. And maybe you would choose something to relax, or maybe you can pursue some hobby to make you feel relaxed and to feel better. Maybe you can care about someone else who is close to you, and this might help you to change the atmosphere, your energy, and to help to rest and to be better in the next classes. And values clarification for perfectionists. Uh, Oftentimes, I notice while working with high achievers that uh, the times when they feel stressed, anxious, or stuck, these are the times when they approach their work or their studies or their career, their classes with fear. And it might be fear of negative evaluation, fear of inadequacy, rather than genuine values. And when you notice this fear, like when you notice some negative thoughts or negative feelings, try to notice what is driving your behavior or this feeling, what is contributing to this feeling. So if you notice that it's an anxiety or fear, you can try to understand what's on the other side of the fear. So for instance, fear of negative evaluation oftentimes includes that you take care of your relationships, or about your identity, or about your career. And you can use the other side of the fear and try to act from that side. So on the other side of fear, generally a genuine care, love, willingness to contribute, willingness to be kind. And so this time you can try to act from love or from care, from kindness. And this time this would make to change your feelings. So if you were experiencing fear initially, and if you were trying to do everything perfectly, when you think about love, when you think about kindness or care, and when you think about other sides of the fear or anxiety, you would realize that it would start to feel okay, even if there are some certain mistakes that you would do, or maybe there would be uncomfortable feelings. And when you ask yourself, what's the small step I can take right now to express my care, my love, or kindness in this situation, it will be easier to approach others with kindness, to approach yourself with kindness, and to be okay with imperfection, and to accept that no one is perfect, and everyone can make mistakes, and this includes us as well. And teaching from genuine care for students learning produces different behavior than teaching from fear of imperfection. And students would also notice this, they would also feel, because we are human beings and we reflect each other's emotions, feelings, and your energy, your mindset, your emotions are also reflection mirror for other students. And when you act from the place of care and love instead of from the place of fear, it will be easier to manage the class or to approach with kindness yourself even during times of challenges. So I want to start by acknowledging something that may not get said often enough. If you are a teacher who struggles with perfectionism, it's usually not because you care too little, it's often because you care deeply, and you care about your students, you care about getting it right, you care about being worthy of responsibility you've been given, and because you care so much, every lesson that doesn't go exactly as planned can feel heavier than anyone else realizes. And before we talk about change, I want to ask you certain questions. You'll likely spend countless hours preparing lessons, replaying conversations after school, wondering if you explained something clearly enough, questioning whether you missed the student's need, or carrying a level of responsibility that many never see. And think of a time when, by your own standards, your teaching was less than perfect, and maybe the lesson felt messy, and maybe you forgot part of your plan. Maybe you left school thinking I could have done that so much better, and maybe you had some anxiety. And according to research, people who are too much having performance anxiety, normal anxiety, and they think that they have performed not good, actually, they are just on cognitive level, and other people are not noticing, first of all, that they haven't performed as well as they wished for. And this is the first factor. And even at times when we think that we haven't performed well, there is actually learning that's happening. There is actually care that you are caring to your students, or you are still contributing. And during those times, so noticing thoughts you have about your performance. Maybe you think that you failed, or you didn't perform well. What's happening during those moments? Did every student fail to learn? And usually the answer is no. So this doesn't tell that something wrong is with you. In fact, many teachers discover something surprising, that students participated, students understood, students grew, they learned, and not because the lesson was perfect, but because generally the teachers are being genuinely present there, and they are bringing their care, their presence, their authenticity into the class. So instead, when you notice yourself, you start to criticize yourself or blame, such as why I'm not good enough. We become curious about the exception, and you can ask yourself some questions such as how did learning still happen? What did your students notice that may haven't been overlooked? What strengths were present that day even when you couldn't see them? And maybe your students still learned, maybe they trusted you, maybe your enthusiasm carried the lesson, maybe even if they didn't perform well, but it helped them to keep going, to keep continuing. Maybe they were going through something difficult, and your care, your presence helped them at least not to stop and not to fail. And maybe your relationship with them mattered more than the slide deck you wished you had improved. And perhaps what they needed most was not a perfect teacher, but a real one who was close, who was next to them. And as we explore these exceptions, actually, maybe you started to realize that evidence suggests that your value as a teacher is much larger than your performance in any single day. And I know that can be difficult to accept, because perfectionism often whispers that if I relax, I will stop caring. If I make a mistake, or I will let students down. But the exception tells a different story. That exception says you care deeply, and learning still happened even when everything wasn't flawless. And exception says your students benefited from you before you felt satisfied with yourself. And exception also says that your students benefited from you before you felt satisfied, and your humanity didn't cancel your effectiveness. And imagine a future where you carried that understanding into your classroom, and future where you can prepare carefully and still leave room for imperfection. What difference can it make in your life if during times of stuckness, or when you feel exhausted or burnt out, you remembered about why did you care, why you are here, why you were struggling, and why you were trying to contribute, and accept those moments that not everything will be perfectly, and it doesn't say that there's something wrong with you, and there are a lot of variables that are difficult to control. And what difference would it make if you could approach yourself with compassion, with kindness, with love? how would others notice that's being different about you, and how this might impact your students' mood, or how you might be modeling them, which behavior you may be modeling them when maybe they didn't perform as well as they wanted, but when you are continuing to support them, when you are continuing to show up even during times when you don't feel very confident, or you feel anxious, or there are still thousands of thoughts that are criticizing you, and if you are still showing up and bringing some values that you think are important for you, and starting to show up and seeing yourself those qualities more often, what would be different, and what difference would it make if you showed up more often every day? And what would they notice about you? Perhaps they would see a teacher who is more present, more relaxed, and more available, more joyful. And what would you notice about yourself that's being different? If you already started to be a person, like if you didn't want to be as perfect, what would you like to be instead? Maybe you want to be more confident, more calm, or you want to show up even during the days when you think that you didn't perform well. So maybe a little less self-criticism would be there. Maybe you would be more confident. What would let you know that you are being confident or calm, or caring about yourself more? And maybe others would have a little bit more trust in the teacher you have already become. And what difference would it make for you? What does it mean for you? And what would this mean about you? So I want to leave you with one final thought, that the fact that you worry about being a good teacher is often evidence that being a good teacher matters deeply to you. And while perfectionism might tell you that your mistakes define you, your students are often responding to something much larger. They remember the teacher who believed in them, the teacher who welcomed them, the teacher who kept showing up even during difficult times, and you are becoming a role model for them, the teacher who cares. And if your students can learn, grow, and thrive on the days you consider imperfect, maybe the story is not that you need to become a perfect teacher. Maybe the story is that you've been making a difference even on the days you couldn't see it. And asking yourself these questions actually help you to remind about your capabilities, about qualities that you forgot or didn't notice. And this actually can help to motivate people to bring more confidence and to feel more confident in their work, and to to take to continue to take steps even on difficult days. And maybe that is a truth worth carrying with you into tomorrow's classroom as well. And according to research that was conducted by NEF, self-compassionate people maintain high standards, and they respond to failure short of them with learning rather than shame. So anytime when you see the results as skills that you need to develop, or that these are results that are telling you what can be done in order to do better, and when the people are approaching themselves with compassion and self-love, they can be more successful, and they can recover faster from setbacks or challenges. And even if you believe that self-critics might make you a better person, it actually, the people who are approaching themselves with compassion can be more successful, can go back from challenges faster, and to be more to stay calm and to be more successful. So what are high standards and perfectionism? High standards means that I want this lesson to be excellent, and I will prepare thoroughly, and if it falls short, I will learn from it. But perfectionism tells you a different story. It says the lesson must be perfect, and if it falls short, I have failed as a teacher. So do you notice the difference? The first approach is helping you uh, to gain a balanced approach and to keep going, to keep learning, whereas the second approach is not being helpful for you and probably would carry you would make your mood worse, and it would be more difficult for you to continue. And one promotes effort and learning, whereas the second one eventually produces anxiety and paralysis. So, what is good enough standard? So, when perfectionism produces shame spirals after imperfect teaching, uh, there are some certain strategies you can apply for yourself. Like each time when you notice that your mind starts generating some self-critical stories, you can ask yourself and notice, I'm experiencing perfectionism right now, and this would help you to diffuse and step back from the thoughts and to be impacted by them so strongly. And you can say, I'm having the thought that I have failed as a teacher. And you can try to ask yourself some values clarification questions, such as what matters to me about teaching, and choosing one value aligned action for tomorrow's class. And if you will be using solution focused approach, you can ask yourself, who do I want to be even during times when I have some perfectionist features and I'm blaming myself, I'm criticizing myself, or I'm not feeling well about myself? How do you want to show up? Which version of me I want to see? Which qualities in me I want to see more often? And what difference would it make for me if I could show up more often and to be more active, or to stay calm, or to stay resilient, patient, even during times when my mind is criticizing me, or I have self critical thoughts? And before planning each day, you can set a specific standard that's excellent but achievable, not perfect. For instance, you can ask yourself, what would a genuinely good lesson on this topic look like? Not ideal, but good one. And this shifts the planning orientation from perfectionism to sustainable excellence. And the second one is imperfect lesson. After a lesson that went below your standard, or if you think that the lesson wasn't as good as you think, you can evaluate yourself and journal, for instance, what still went well, what did I do well, even if there were some challenges, and what did the students learn, and even imperfectly, what one thing I could change and I would like to approach differently. And this would help you to realize that some of our thoughts are exaggerated or not very close to reality. And this would also help you to notice some positive sides of you, some good qualities that help you to keep going and to help you to keep more balanced view about yourself and to continue to make progress. And compassion teaching standards. You can try writing. A genuinely good teacher is not perfect. Uh, they possess these three qualities, and you can choose three qualities that you want to see in yourself more often. Maybe this is care, maybe this is kindness, maybe this is staying calm or contribution. And each day, for instance, at the end of the day, mm, you can track your progress. You can say, today I used these qualities, I used these values, and maybe you can choose which values you are going to use this day at the beginning of the day, and set some intentions. And you can think in advance where exactly would you like to see these qualities or this value might look like, in which areas of your life, in which fields of your life. For instance, you can choose some fields like career, education, maybe your parenthood, maybe caring for your kids, maybe in your studies, in your relationships. So after you choose which fields you want to see these qualities more often, you can bring some examples what it might look like if you were more compassionate while you are caring about your kids, when you in your relationship with yourself, for instance, if you were more caring or more compassionate. And this might help you to plan and to have some ideas on what you can change, what can be different. And when you will be faced with real time experiences or situations, it will be easier for you to turn it into action, to actually start doing it. And standards flexibility practice. You can deliberately plan a lesson to a good enough standard. So, for instance, if even you notice that if you are studying, for instance, you've been studying for hours and you still think that you need to study, but you also need to rest. And in order to make the balance, you can deliberately stop at the place where you don't think that this is enough. But when you notice that this will cause exhaustion or burnout, you can deliberately stop and stay with this discomfort, maybe uncomfortable feelings such as anxiety, or maybe you will have some self critical thoughts, and just staying with this discomfort and uncomfortable internal experiences would help you to be more willing to embrace uncertainty, and by time you will be you can bear and tolerate uncomfortable feelings and uncomfortable thoughts better, and this would increase your ability to notice these thoughts and observe the outcome. Notice whether students' learning wasn't as compromised as perfectionism predicts, and this evidence gathering also directly challenges perfectionist beliefs with data. And even if you think that your class or your performance wasn't perfect, try to leave it at that point and experiment, check how others, what did they notice. And oftentimes, even if your mind tells that this wasn't well enough, it wasn't perfect enough, actually others would enjoy it and others would like it. And this would help you to realize that not everything our minds are telling us are correct or 100% true. And uh, I hope this session was helpful for you. I tried to share some solution focused and acceptance commitment strategies that you can apply for perfectionism. If you want to learn more about these topics, you can come to psychotherapy or you can text me. I'm glad to answer your questions. You can also leave your questions in the comments, and I'm generally considering each question and trying to answer them during the leaves. So maybe we can conclude that most effective teachers are not perfect teachers, but the ones who show their presence, who show their care. And even at times when your mind is telling you that you are not perfect or your performance is not good, there are still values and qualities that you have that you can use and remind yourself that would help you to support yourself better and would help you to keep going and taking steps even at times of challenges, difficulties, uncertainties. And if teachers are constantly good teachers who learn continuously, they care genuinely and protect their capacity to keep teaching. And don't forget that being able to take care of yourself and approaching yourself with kindness and love is important, not just for you, but for your students also, because you will be able to provide more long term care when you feel good and when you are taking care of yourself. I hope this session was helpful for you. Thank you for your time. Take care of yourself and see you in the next sessions again.